introductions. And be sure to unmute if you are trying to talk.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much, Jennifer, for the invite. I'm very excited to be here. As I had mentioned, Go Circo is a newer part of my career path, and it's been an absolutely wonderful experience so far. I don't come from an IT background or much of a sales background. I actually come from federal government background, former Army, and of course, government service as a senior executive over at Homeland Securities, where I stopped. Um, Prior to that, I spent 22 years in counterterrorism, working all over the world for multiple agencies, making sure that we got our watch lists in check. I've done a lot of really neat things. I've had a lot of great experiences at multiple agencies. Worked for the J2, the Joint Terrorism Task Force there at the Pentagon, NSA, and of course, again, I ended up at Homeland. So, being here at Go Circle has been a wonderful experience. I've had the pleasure of now working with a lot of the PSAPs and emergency centers across our area here where we're located, and we'll go into our map here in just a bit. But I just wanted to say thank you for your time today. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to share who Go Circo is today.
Thank you, Kim. Chris Nadu.
Good morning. My name is Chris Nato. I'm actually the maintenance account administrator for Go Circo. Been here for coming up on 4 years now. Prior to this, I spent 27 years as a 911 dispatcher, trainer, supervisor, and 20 years as a manager at a medium-sized PSAP here in the Phoenix metro area. Prior to that, I had 9 years of military and a little bit of experience bouncing around in between careers. So, again, I worked for Go Circle because I was a customer of theirs for 27 years and was just a huge fan of what I was seeing from the customer side. So, when I was offered the opportunity to come over and work for them, I jumped at it. So, thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Chris. Representing our technical side, Ryan Duggins.
Yes, my name is Ryan Duggins. I've been with Go Circo since July of 2012. Prior to that, I was in law enforcement for 10 years myself. Last position was a police chief. Worked that and really loved that line of work for quite some time. Came to Go Circo just per chance and have been loving it ever since. I've been involved in many aspects of the business and really look forward to taking care of customers.
Thank you, Ryan. I think that's it for me. Now it's down to me. So I'm like I said, I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Mike Foley. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Go Circo. I spent 18 years in public safety as well on the communication sides. Just climbed the same ladder that Chris climbed, from dispatcher to trainer to supervisor to manager. Even had a brief stint as the assistant director of a police department, which was like the assistant chief if you were a civilian. Obviously, in a civilian, or I'm sorry, a sworn dominated world, you can only go so high. And so I was fortunate to get to that level and experience a lot of great things and meet so many tremendous people, and networked a ton along the way. And it was APCO of 2022 in Anaheim. I think it was 2022. I had a conversation with the owner, Go Circo, Jeff Goen, who's a great guy. And I had, like Chris, been a customer of Go Circo's for 15 years. And love the company, love the treatment that we received as customers. And we had a great conversation, just in a typical conference forum. Didn't think much of it. A couple months later, out of nowhere, I got a call from the owner, and he wanted to talk about a position, a high-level position with the company. And the rest is history. So I've been here since December of 2022. It's a total different dynamic for me, going from the public safety side, staying in public safety, but going to the private side on the other side of the table at those conferences. But it's been a tremendous experience. One of the things I'm most thrilled about is my perception of them as a customer is consistent with what I see now behind the curtain as a company. And I don't just say that, and I encourage you to check all our references as you hear the presentation today. But it was a big risk for me. I have 4 kids at home, and my wife stays at home with the kids. And to walk away from what everyone says is the retirement, security, it was a big thing. So I definitely wanted to vet the company that I would go to, and I'm thrilled with my decision. Never regretted it once. So anyway, if I can go to the next slide, Kim, just to make sure we got everything on the introduction side. All right. Yes, we got everyone. Perfect. Thank you. And by the way, a good majority of us are on LinkedIn. I encourage you to connect, to follow what we're doing, and we have a Go Circo LinkedIn as well as my personal one. I'd love to connect with you guys. Kim and I both attended the Colorado conference last year, and we plan to do it again this year. So if I haven't had a chance to meet you, please come by and say hello next time you see us at the conference. So thank you, Kim. Go to the next slide, please. So this is to give you an idea, who is Go Circo and what in the world do you guys do? Well, Go Circo has been around since 1991. It is a family-owned business, and how it started back in 1991, and it started with a few guys and has now grown to 3 employees in total. We specialize in communications recording. We do some security solutions in that way, and we also do cybersecurity. So we are regionally focused in the Western United States. We have 500 plus customers throughout that, ranging from smaller PSAPs to large PSAPs, anywhere from Arizona State Patrol, Denver, BOIC, a bunch of areas in New Mexico. Really, every state that you see on that screen, we have customers in for the most part, and we are very much excited about our growth and expansion. Kim, as you met earlier, she's in charge of your territory, which is the state of Colorado, but we're focused on growing. What we offer is the Eventide product, and Verint is 2 options that we do on the communications recording side. On the interview room side of the security side of the house, we offer iRecord, which I don't know if this venue is the one that we would go into that, but basically an interview room, detectives interview suspects, witnesses, and such. We provide the systems that would record that information. And Seculor is who we partner with when it comes to, oh, I'm getting some feedback.
A lot of time over the holidays to examine that record. So this is
you guys hearing that?
Piece, which is hearing from both parties their final arguments. So I think that's
yes, we're hearing
John. I think it's John Cummings is where I'm seeing it come from.
By the end of this month.
Sorry, I'll correct that.
That's all right.
Was in the courtroom. Donald Trump wrote me onto the deal. We spend other people's money. Tell me about what it was like in that courtroom today so far.
Jennifer, you can mute John.
Right, so we
I know, I'm trying to find
Trump's closing arguments right at the start this morning, and they're still going on. At the beginning, we've gone through, I think, and I want to sort of go through some
I'll give him a second.
Where is he? I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Hold on, let me see if I can just mute everybody.
Just with some of the greatest cats, they say that he is a real estate genius, and that he knew Donald Trump knew that the banks would be doing their own due diligence. And then we went to
keep
his
going.
financial statement.
There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Know where that happens. So anyway, long story short, we specialize in communications recording, security, and cybersecurity. Those are the 3 things that we offer, and the company has grown tremendously, but one of the things we're most known for is our service. So I wanted to pause right there, and of course this is going to be difficult now that everybody's muted. I suppose they can probably still unmute themselves, but I had a question for the group, and I wanted to know from you guys, in your perspective, what makes a good vendor partner for you guys, and what do you look for in a product when you're engaging with vendors? So if I can get a little bit of participation, I would really appreciate that. Hopefully you're able to unmute. If not, that'll make that answer a lot more silent.
You should all be able to unmute.
This is Jody from Denver. For me, what makes a good partner is one that's responsive. Even if it's the answer that we don't want to hear, being responsive to those inquiries is crucial for me.
Thank you very much, Jody. I appreciate that. Definitely appreciated that as a manager as well. What else do you guys think?
This is Jackie from Adams County, and for me, I want to have a real conversation with a real person, not just be sent a video on how something works, how to train, or how to make an update.
Yes, I mean, it seems like society has gotten away from that a lot. It's a bunch of remote videos, and it's so difficult to connect. It's the love-hate relationship with technology that exists in today's world for sure. I appreciate that. What else? Feel free to not hold back. I know I've had great experiences with vendors. I've also had horrific experiences. So I'd like to hear that feedback from you guys. We'll target a couple more.
Hi, good morning. This is Tina with Weld County. I think for us, it's somebody that shares that sense of urgency with us. Just being available when we're having issues, or the other part of that is understanding how one system may tie into another one. We see that a lot with some of our recording stuff. It branches out into a lot of different areas, and being knowledgeable enough to understand, even at a high level, how they relate and how they affect each other is something that we really value.
No, definitely. The sense of urgency. Obviously, it's a mission critical environment. We can't just have systems go down and not care about them. Obviously, you guys have a lot of irons in the fire, and everybody is busy. So, yeah, having a subject matter expert that is familiar with that and all the different integrations that exist between the systems, I totally agree with you. All right, one last one. How about we eeny, meeny, miny, mo? Kimberly. Are you there, Kimberly? Nope. How about Beth? Beth Dobronsky? Everyone's shy to speak. All right. Well, we'll press on.
You know what, Mike, this is Jody again. So not to, monopolize the time or anything,
No,
but
yeah, go ahead.
I could talk all day about what I like from vendors. So another one for me is, we have a vendor in particular that with one of our systems that I meet with monthly in person. I get that that's not always possible. And sometimes there's not even something wrong, but just having that one-on-one, whether it's virtual or in person, having that one-on-one time with them on a regular cadence to get to know them and make sure that all of the things are being addressed is huge to me. So.
Oh, no, I really appreciate that feedback. And I did get a message from Kimberly saying she cannot get unmuted, so she wasn't trying to avoid the question, but I appreciate the willingness to participate. All right, Kim, if you can go to the next slide. All of those things you guys talked about should be the normal expectation. Unfortunately, it wasn't always in my experience, but there were some that had that. Being responsive, talking to real human beings, being able to get to know the person so you build up some trust. So you're not just having somebody show up at your door to visit you when they want you to spend a 50, 100 grand. I mean, I don't like that type of mentality, and quite frankly, I don't think most people do. So the other thing is the urgency and understanding everything is mission critical. That's super important as well. We're not the only vendor you guys are dealing with, and you got all those different systems in place, and so it's up to us to make sure that the system we provide is one less thing you have to worry about. So on the screen, I'm showing our vision, mission, and values. I won't read them to you, but just to summarize, we are customer focused. That is the reputation that GoCirco has with our customers. We focus on you guys, making sure you guys are taken care of. We are extremely responsive. We have the expertise and the experience to do that, being in business for the last, 30 some odd years. You'll see some of our values on there. Obviously, customer service is big. We talked about, we have flexibility. But the biggest thing to me that I want us to represent as a company is the ability to build relationships. And so our vision is about building strong relationships and being trusted. I mean, those two things go a long way. And those are some things that we focus on as we talk about how we operate and how we do business as GoCirco. So what do you get with GoCirco? There's a number of different providers of communications recording equipment. I've had to deal with 3 or 4 myself on the other side of the house, being a communications manager. So what's important? Well, GoCirco, I strongly believe we provide the best in-class service for 911 communications recording systems. Not every system is meant for every customer. There's no cookie cuttering. We try to get with the customer, understand what their needs are, what their desires are, and offer a solution that's best fit for them, whether that's variant, whether that's eventide. The systems that we provide have a ton of integrations, which I think separate us from a lot of different companies. Integrations that were mentioned earlier, systems that tie together. Does your communications recording system tie into your CAD system so that instead of looking by date and time, you can search by the DR number, the incident number? Those things that make your life easier. Maybe you use Rapid SOS and you're looking for a certain you want to know how many calls came into a certain area. Those are things that we can provide. Rapid SOS, you get the breadcrumbs, right? And so who knew that anyone can pull a recording, but who knew that when you pull a recording and you have the Rapid SOS integration, you can see the breadcrumbs as you listen to the recording on how the location changed as it happened. All of those things are all available and go far beyond simply recording a call. Maybe it's quality assurance programs. Some of our systems have a built-in quality assurance program that allow you to customize it and evaluate your employees. We do screen recordings as well as an option. So not that you're trying to be the big brother, nobody really has time for that, but there's a lot of benefits in the training side of the house, is trying to understand what the trainee might have done to get slipped up within that CAD, operating in CAD, or maybe it's an error message that only pops up, but when IT is standing behind you, it never pops up, right? Those types of things. It's nice to have a video that we can send to them so that they see exactly what was happening when that error message popped up. We talk about contact centers. We can operate in public safety. We can do without, but 95, if not more, % of our customers are all public safety. Cybersecurity. This is a newer venture that's obviously in the last 10 years. Cybersecurity has been getting hotter and hotter out there. Secular is a great partner of ours that we recently set up a partnership with, I vetted them personally. I think they have a lot of great customers and a lot of options out there for evaluating your systems and looking for doing a threat assessment and then providing you with information. And like we talked about, the interview rooms, but everything we do is customized and designed for you guys specifically in your systems. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Kim, go to the next slide. So the industries we support, like we mentioned, public safety, PSAPs, municipalities, county islands, corporations, power companies, utilities, hospitals, metro transits, universities. We have that flexibility and we have experience in dealing with every single one of those on that list. So the solution development slide is to give you a high-level understanding of how the process unfolds with us. Maybe some of you have done this before, maybe you've done it a million times, maybe you haven't quite yet, but this is how it would generally work. We would have a discovery call with a customer and determine what their needs are. Again, trying to understand what's important to them and what we can provide that would help them with that. Once we have that idea, that's when we determine which product we would demonstrate, whether it's eventide, variant, secular, depending on what we're talking about. From there, we offer a site survey that we could come out to your site, walk with you through your comm center, the server rooms, understand what setup you have, how many positions, what phone system you use, what radio system you use, any additional applications that you use that could potentially integrate. Then once we get that site survey, we've had the product demonstration, then we would build the quote based on what you need and based on our discussions. From there, once you've decided, yes, this is the system I want us to go with, from there, we go into the purchasing process. And how that can be initiated, obviously, you can sign the quote, you can submit a purchase order, you can give us a purchase order number. Either way, we can move forward with you guys. Then it would get assigned to a project manager to handle your specific project. They would be in communication with you constantly. You'd get an email within a couple days of moving forward with us, and that project manager would take the project from there and work with you directly. The installation, like we talked about earlier, we have flexibility. Everybody has needs. They're upgrading in 3 months. They want to try to time it with their new phone system. All of those things we have we can work with you guys on and make sure that we have somebody there and available when you need us. It doesn't always work on our schedule. It's about you guys. Training, this is a huge piece. I heard it in some of the feedback from you guys. This is one of the things I brag most about with GoCirco is the unlimited training. We can come out and train in person. We can do it remotely. We could record, but primarily we are in person. But we can do it remote as well. So if you have days, swings, nights, it's so hard to get everyone together on the same day at the exact same time. That's okay. We totally understand that. If you need 5 training sessions, that would be included. And that's part of the GoCirco experience, is having that flexibility. And hey, let's say in 2 years, let's say you're under a service contract with us, and 2 years in, you get a new supervisor or you get a new employee that has to use the system. Rather than having you guys who have a ton of things already on your plate, you can simply reach out to GoCirco and we will train them directly. So they hear it straight from our mouth, and we train them exactly on how to use the system, takes it off of somebody else's hands. We're willing to do that always. That's a big plus with going with GoCirco. And last but not least, the ongoing support. Chris is going to talk about the EWP here in a little bit, but this is the extended warranty plan. We have some customers that do it annually. We have some customers that pay 5 years in advance. That's completely up to you. But as part of that EWP, you get that ongoing support, the unlimited training, and more. So we'll get into some of that more in a little bit. But so this slide is basically designed to show, I could not we can't fit every logo of every company that we integrate with, but this is the idea here of this slide is just know that the integrations is a key piece that I like to focus on in the communications recording. Is, again, anyone can record a call, but these various integrations are there and made to make your lives easier when you're looking for calls and things like that. You need to build an incident, having all these different integrations, and there's way more than on this slide, but the point is these are the things, the various companies that we have integrations with our systems. So the pillars of excellence, we focus on customer service, as you'll hear in a little bit even more. We have long-term team members. One of the things that drew me to the company as I started analyzing on whether or not I wanted to make the move was what's the tenure of the employees within the company? In my experience, if somebody likes to be somewhere, they don't typically leave. And the overwhelming majority of the service staff and really the entire GoCirco team has been within the company for years. And I think that's telling. And when you got happy employees, they're far more willing to take care of people and handle business. And that's something I've always appreciated. And then lastly, on this slide, the experienced service department, we wanted to have people that had been here long-term now pass that knowledge along. And so we're really focused this upcoming year on internal development. And because we're expanding, we're bringing on additional people onto the team, and we plan on bringing them up to speed as quickly as possible. And we know we have the right people to do that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Duggins to present a little bit about the service team.
Hi. Yeah, so to essentially continue with what Mike was saying, we really do offer a multi-pronged approach to customer service and being centered around your needs and knowing what you need and trying to even sometimes proactively detect that, So by that, what we mean is we have a support coordinator that is always available to take any of your calls and questions and pass that along to the appropriate person. That person can also coordinate other needs for you, and they are available to you during our office hours. We also offer customer check-ins that we've started recently within about the last 12, 13 months. These check-ins include reaching out to you, looking at your system with you if you have any concerns or needs, helping you to maybe foresee any projects that may be upcoming and what changes may need to be made to your system to accommodate for those projects, and providing quotes and things of those nature and helping you prepare for that and not being blindsided by using those check-ins to just have those discussions. We also provide proactive system checks. By that, we mean that we get into your systems and proactively follow a guideline of what to check and then report any errors or irregularities back to you. Also, to echo with the experience of the team, most of our team has been around about 10 years on average. We do have a very diverse set of people who has a lot of knowledge in every aspect of the business. Our flexible installation schedule really means that we can offer a custom tailor of what you need. If you have early morning cutover requirements, we can provide support for that. Project calls, whichever model you need to follow to get to the goal that you're looking for, we certainly will offer a solution. The in-depth training is really just to say that we will offer training whenever you need it, and not only just push past the surface of something, but allow you to gain the benefits from the different features that are released, or perhaps things that go obscure to other people. We want to have you leverage that metadata so it can actually work for you. And the last thing here is our 24/7 support. This is available to every customer, but it is available as a purchase item, which Chris will talk about in a moment. But every customer can take advantage of this. We are available to everyone. However, if you do not have the plan, obviously there would be a fee for that, but we do offer that. So with that, I'll hand this over to Chris to talk about the maintenance plans.
So, we've talked a lot about all the things we offer and all the technology and the integrations and all the services we provide. So all of that comes for the first year as part of your purchase price. So when you buy the system, the first year of maintenance and support is completely included at a gold or standard level, which, as you can see, is our remote and on-site, 100% parts and labor. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. If you feel that you want to prepay basically for 24/7 coverage, you can purchase a 24/7 package. Now, we found that most of our customers play more in the gold standard range, but we do offer that gold 24/7 package. Our platinum packages, a lot of our federal customers don't allow for remote access to their systems. They're completely island where they don't really allow any remote access or web access. So they are on-site only, which means to do anything, we have to send somebody out to their site. So they have a platinum level plan. And then we have our lower tier plans for no on-site and remote only and only labor with no parts. Depending on your customer needs and kind of the system you're working on, we offer different plans that we can tailor to your situation. Now, these plans, we will tell you up front, when you buy your system with all your features, the number of positions, and the number of integrations, the number of channels recorded and all that, this is what your maintenance and support is going to cost you starting year 2 moving forward. That way there's no surprise. There's nothing worse than you buy a system and all of a sudden they say, hey, by the way, it's 80% per year to support this system, and you're now trying to justify to the boss why this is costing so much. So we provide you with our EWP prices up front so that you can make an informed decision, not only for the purchase, but for the lifespan of that product. So with our plans, and I'm going to talk particularly about our gold plan because that is our most common plan, you get unlimited support calls. Any of our plans come with unlimited support calls. So you can call into the support desk, tell them your problem, and we will assign a tech and we will get you taken care of. If you have a non-24/7 plan, Ryan talked about this a little bit, you can still call in 24/7, or your staff can send emails to request service. If it's not an emergency, hey, we just realized we have a new supervisor, we need to get them added, and we can't remember how to set up a supervisory account on the recorder. Can you help us out? They can just send an email, so they don't even have to make a phone call. We'll get it, we'll send it to a tech, and we'll have a tech reach back out during our normal business hours to get that set up for you. So if you don't have a 24/7 plan, but you have an issue that pops up where suddenly, you know, you're the 0.0001% customer and the login recorder drops offline. You need help right now. You can call us at 2 in the morning, whether you have a 24/7 plan or not. Submit a ticket. Our on-call person will call you back. And the only difference between a gold and the gold 24/7 is if you're on a 24/7 plan, there's no additional cost for that to us to work on it, holidays, weekends, nights. There's no additional cost. You've already prepaid that in your plan. If you're on a regular plan, then we start charging basically a time differential for that. So, okay, we're going to get you up. It's going to take us 2 hours. That time differential might be $200 for that particular call. Again, parts are still covered, so all you have to worry about is that little bit of labor. So with the reliability factor, our premier product is our Eventide product and our Variant product as well. They both have high level of availability, above 99% availability. So we very rarely see an emergency call come in, let alone one at night. But if you want the coverage of a 24/7 plan, we're happy to offer that to you. All of our plans that you see that come with parts and labor, that's 100% of parts. There's no deductible. It's not like a home warranty or something like that. Oh, we're going to depreciate it because you've had it for 3 years, so that means we're only going to cover 70% of it or whatever. It's 100% parts. So it breaks, whether we repair it or replace it, we do it at no cost. That's part of your plan. The other nice thing with a plan, as opposed to doing everything time and materials, is that in addition to the unlimited remote training sessions like Mike was talking about, we can train your new employees, your new supervisors, do refresher training, do system administrator training for IT if they want it. We can do all of that for you. It's covered under the EWP, no cost. It's just a matter of reaching in. Our trainer will schedule time with you. We'll make that happen. The other issue is, or the other benefit, I should say, is there's no issue with if you're on time and materials and you call us, we have to, give you an estimate of what that's going to cost, and you have to get that authorized and figure out how you're going to pay us. And that can lead to some delays in service generally on your end and trying to find who's got a purchasing card, or are we going to do it by PO, who's going to authorize this, those sort of things. And that leads to the manager getting woken up at 3 in the morning when they don't necessarily need to be. And having been a manager for 20 years, I've had plenty of those, and it's nice to find something that alleviates those night and weekend calls. So that gives us the opportunity to pack all of the problems that you could experience and get rid of them by giving you a plan that is appropriately sized for your agency with a mission critical solution. And the majority of us all have to have, are required by law to have 911 reporting kept and maintained for a period of years. It's not something that can be easily, oh, it's broken, we'll get it fixed when we get the chance, or next budget year or whatever. It has to be done. So this EWP gives you something you don't have to worry about. You can budget for it in your recurring budget, and it's just a normal course of business. We do offer, you can do an annual plan that we renew every year. Each year I'll reach out to you. I'll send you your quote for the coming year. And we go through the PO process and so on. Or you can either at the time of purchase or at any time as you're a customer, decide, let's prepay for 2 years, 5 years, however long you want to sign that contract for. And we'll give you a discount off of the price. So you'll see our annual price. We're going to multiply that times 4 years because you're going to pre-purchase a 4-year contract, and then you'll see a discount on there. So that way you are getting more bang for your buck, and you're not having to remember that each year you have to renew this plan. The last thing is both our plans, both our systems, the Eventide and the Variant, along with pretty much every other system I've seen out there now, comes with a software subscription. And what that is the manufacturer is now, as part of owning this, you have to pay a software subscription fee to them. And that's how they're funding the ability to keep the software updated and provide you with updates to the software and patches and those sort of things. So what we've done is, rather than you having to now have two payments a year on your logging recorder, we incorporate that because we work hand in hand with both the manufacturers, and we incorporate that into your extended warranty plan. So we manage the license keys for you. We manage the payments to Variant and or Eventide, and we just incorporate it into your EWP. So there's only one thing you have to worry about for your logging recorder every year, or every 3 years or 5 years if you go with a multi-year plan. And then we take care of everything on the backside, so you don't have to worry about it. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Chris. It kind of reminds me of insurance. Nobody likes to pay it, but when you need them, they're there. That being said, we take it to the next level and offer a ton more value that comes with that extended warranty. And that's some of the things Chris highlighted. I think it was brought up earlier in the responses from you guys, the idea of somebody that's responsive and a real person. One of the things Ryan touched on earlier was, this isn't a 1-800 call center that's going to be fielding your calls. This is Megan that's going to be answering the calls. This is a live human being. And that's one of the things I had experienced in the past, where you have to dial this 1-800 number and then put in your information, and then they have somebody else call you, and then you have to give them all that information again or get passed along. This is a direct person that you're going to be speaking to when you call and talk to us. So that's something that's important. The other thing he talked about was customer check-ins. We started this when I came on board. We talked about, every one of these people that are running communication centers have so many things going on, and sometimes they're aware of an issue, but they haven't got around to getting to that issue and to address that issue. I understand that. We understand that. And so we initiated the proactive customer check-ins for that exact reason. So that, and it happens from time to time, we'll get somebody on the phone and say, "Oh, I've been meaning to call you. I need to create a new user." Okay, that's something we can knock out within minutes. So we try to do that, and that's one of the purposes as well. So what Kim's showing there is some testimonials. We've dealt with state patrol, we've dealt with sheriff's office, we've dealt with city police, all various sizes. And these are just some of their things to feed, some of the feedback that we've gotten from them. Obviously, we are very much appreciative of them taking the time to write those. But we have a whole list, and I encourage you to not take my word for it. I just represent the company, but for me, as a comm manager, it's one thing to just hear it from the guy that represents the company. It's a whole nother thing to see it from the customers that actually have the product. And so I encourage you guys to, if you're considering getting into a new communications recording system, that you would reach out. And this is the final one from Kira Nelson over at the Arizona Department of Public Safety. So these mean more to me than anything, because it means we're doing our job and we're doing it the right way, that people would not only buy the product from us and continue to buy from us and sometimes switch to us, but also take the time that it takes to write a quick testimonial. I really appreciate each customer that is willing to do that. So that's the testimonials. Any questions? And by the way, we have a website, www.gocirco.com. I really encourage you to check it out. There may or may not be a promotional going on right now that you may be interested in. So please feel free to check it out. But any questions that we can answer at all?
This is Jody. I have a couple questions.
Sure, go ahead, Jody.
So you saw from RTS Manager that we use your company for one of our systems, recording system. My question is, how do you handle or troubleshoot situations in which the software failed to record? Is there any kind of a cloud or other means for restoring lost recordings?
Ryan, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so essentially with that, we solve for that by offering many different varieties. So we can do an on-premise solution with a network archive storage. We can also double up on that and do network archive plus USB. We do offer a cloud product through Eventide that would provide a disaster recovery in the sense of restoring from the cloud and being able to play back from the cloud. But we do offer many different approaches to disaster recovery.
Thank you. And then I have one more question. Is there a way, do you have a way to certify recordings for court subpoenas and whatnot?
Yes, we do provide letters of recording downtime. These letters are on letterhead. They can be notarized or otherwise certified if needed, but that is a practice that we've had to provide in the past for various reasons.
One thing I'd like to add, this is Chris again, in regards to that, with the Eventide product, there are some tools, some are built in, some are an additional purchase with the advanced reporting, that allow you to automatically add your attestation to the front of the recording. You can actually add the subpoena and your documentation that's a true and original recording right to it. So what we found is customers who use that, dispatchers aren't getting, or supervisors who pulled the tapes aren't getting subpoenaed into court just to attest that it's a true and original. And it actually works out really well, along with all the muting and the redacting and all that that's part of it. But you can just add that right into the front so that everybody sees it up front.
That's great. Thank you so much.
And additional questions. And hopefully they can unmute themselves. I'd hate for them to be sitting on questions and not able to ask. Jennifer, do you know if they can, or do you want to unmute everybody at this point?
This is Jennifer. I did make sure that everybody can unmute,
okay.
And I've also been watching chat
okay, thank
but
you.
I don't see any questions in chat. But I appreciate your time and your team's time as well. So thank you very, very much for coming and speaking with us today.
No, we really appreciate it. Once again, GoCirco is very thankful for all of you guys and what you guys do. Kim is going to be in town next month in February, so please feel free to reach out to her and she can stop by. She'll be there for a conference. But please let us know, reach out if you have any questions, anything we can help with. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. This is Jennifer, and you are welcome to stay on and attend the rest of the meeting. And you are also welcome to move on with your day. So thank you so much. This has been recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel as all of our task force meetings are. So thank you. All right, this is Jennifer. Moving on to the agenda, I will go back to sharing my screen here. Is that the right screen? Is that the agenda? I can't see.
Yes.
It looks like it.
Okay, perfect. It usually has a green line around it, but I don't see that. Okay, so moving on, we will move to the standing reports. And again, as a reminder, we aren't reading the standing reports out, but we will call on each committee chair to highlight things that they would like to or discuss out of the standing reports. So out of the PUC staff updates, just a couple things to highlight. In our notice of proposed rulemakings for the amendments to the emergency service outage rules, there will be a public comment hearing on January 29th, but it's being convened for the sole purpose of continuing that hearing date, setting a new public comment hearing date, and the public comment deadlines have been extended to February 12th with responsive comments due February 21st. So if you are an interested party who would like to file comments in that proceeding, you have a little bit more time to do that. The CPAP assurance plan, the performance assurance plan funds distribution was completed, and the list of recipients is listed in that standing report. We have the 2023 outage stats. We had 34 outages in 2023. The average duration went down to an average of 10 hours from a high of 22 and a half. The unknown cause was the highest number of outages by cause. So we had 29.4 listed as unknown, 26.5% listed as accidental cable cut, and then the rest are there as well. And our ongoing outage investigations website is there. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. Daryl?
Not a question, but I want to add a little bit about the outage. If you want to go back to those charts. So you can see that there's quite a spike in 2023. That spike is for a couple of different reasons. One is I believe we actually did have more outages than in previous years. However, a significant chunk of those outages are all from one location, which is City of Thornton, which had a series of outages over the course of about a month until a permanent fix was put in. So that is part of the reason why that number is so high. Another reason is that because of the difference in interpretation between commission staff and CenturyLink regarding what constitutes a basic emergency service outage, CenturyLink stopped reporting a lot of their basic emergency service outages, at least outages that commission staff consider to be basic emergency service outages. And as a compromise, CenturyLink started copying commission staff on all of the notifications that go to the PSAPs regarding outages. And I believe that it's possible that we are now aware of more outages than we have been in previous years because we are getting copied on all of those PSAP outage notification emails. So there's a couple of different reasons why it's so high. It's not a good number to look at regardless. And I'm hoping that through the investigation process, as well as the ongoing rulemaking, we can help wrangle that to a more reasonable number in future years.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, Daryl. Any questions for Daryl? All right, moving on. We did not receive a report from Lumen. Is there anyone from Lumen who is able to join that would like to give a report?
Hi, this is Tim.
Hi, Tim. Thank you.
I always forget that you asked for the report. I just had a few things really. Appreciate some of the conversations I've had around with some of you around the outage process and leading up to the rules that are now extended out a little bit, and happy to talk to others as well. So I appreciated those conversations. We're continuing to work through some of the ECATS implementation, so that is still something that's going. We're hopeful that we can make a lot more progress this first quarter on that. And then I am working on the network improvement plan that is due in roughly a month. The original date is February 15, but because we've got a proceeding that was suspended, maybe that's not the right word, but and so I know we're gonna be meeting back with the ALJ in February, but I'm still working towards a plan that could be submitted sometime in mid-February. And then finally, I'm still working on, as some of you that are part of these conversations, on another tariff amendment to incorporate things like GIS and text. So that is still something that is ongoing. I haven't had as much time to work on some of those, just with the other things that we've been handling, but that is still something that is in process. I hope to have something. I'm guessing it probably will be after the improvement plan and the rulemaking comments. And I will probably, I shouldn't say may, I'll probably incorporate a workshop kind of process similar to how we walked through the ECATs for these as well. I think that proved invaluable to answering questions and formulating a good tariff that we were able to move forward on without a long drawn out procedural matter. I think that's all I have. Take any questions.
Thank you, Tim. Michael Brewer has his hand up.
Yeah, hi. Question regarding, I don't know if it's associated with the tariff, but it's my understanding with implementation of ECATS that there's an associated cost going back to the PSAPs for data storage. Has that issue been resolved, or is that still being worked on?
Yeah, that has not been resolved. That is still being worked on. I appreciate you raising.
Thank you, Michael. Does anyone else have any questions for Tim?
On that matter, this is Daryl. On that matter, I just want to clarify my understanding from yesterday's EZNet users group call was that the issue is related to PSAPs that have data from other systems that they want to transition over to ECATS. So historical data, not data going forward. Is that correct, or is there a different issue that I'm not aware of?
Kimberly, you have your hand up?
Tim, I'm not certain I can speak to that. Daryl, I missed yesterday's call.
So yeah, this is Kimberly, and I also was not on yesterday's call, but I know Matt was on it. And for a Viper, I can only speak from a Viper and a Westhouse system. And there isn't a cost for data storage in ECATS. There is a cost if you want to take your old data and migrate that into ECAT. So we opted to do a year worth of data so we can pull those reports for a full year in the ECATS environment. And then for our retention policy, we're just keeping our old database live for a couple more years. But just from a general ECAT storage, that's all within the ECATS project. It's up in the cloud.
Kimberly.
And this is Jennifer. I did see Jeff Winkleman joined, and I'm not to put Jeff on the spot, but he was at the EZNet users group meeting yesterday, so I didn't know if he had anything to add, Jeff. The question is about the additional storage for historical data moving to ECATS.
I don't know that I have anything to add, and I'm sorry for my delay. I didn't have a notification pop up in the meeting. After the conversation we had yesterday, I was thinking about it. The options that are there, the convenience having it put into ECATS is great, but there is also the option of having the existing system still run. So that's the only thing that I would add to it.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff Irvin has his hand up.
Yeah, I was on the call yesterday, and there was quite a bit of discussion, and it seemed that that large number, $80,000, that has been bandied about was the result of not only this data transfer, but the resultant Vesta upgrade from one version to another at Bretza that they're undergoing and could possibly incur that kind of cost. So that's what the discussion is centered on.
Thank you, Jeff. This is Jennifer. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, thank you, Tim, for the update. And do we have any standing report from Intrado?
Hi, this is Sean Ward from Intrado. I have nothing to report. I would just say ECATS is an Intrado service. So if you have any questions, we're happy to help through Lumen to answer questions.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions for Sean? Okay, moving down the list, Bylaws Committee, Kimberly.
This is Kimberly. No updates, no requests for any bylaw changes.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, Kimberly. And as a reminder, as of the first of the year, we adopted the updated bylaws as voted on, I believe, in the September meeting. So those have been posted to the website for your review. And thank you for the Bylaws Committee work on those updated bylaws. Legislative Committee, Jackie Louise provided a report. Jackie, is there anything you want to highlight out of here? Or does
No,
anybody
good
have
morning.
questions?
Unless anyone has any questions, I'm here for questions.
Thank you. Oh, Daryl, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight the DORA minimum voluntary standards bill that was discussed through the legislative committee. I also sent a copy of the draft language for that bill out to this group. DORA is open to suggestions for improvement on that language. If anybody has any suggestions for how to improve the draft language of the bill, a sponsor has not been solidified yet. I can't even guarantee that it's going to be introduced. But if anybody does have any suggestions for how to improve that language, please send that to me and I can pass it up through DORA.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, Daryl. Any questions for Daryl?
Daryl, this is Holly. I'm sorry, will you say that bill again?
The minimum voluntary standards bill that DORA is proposing.
Thanks.
Kimberly, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Jennifer. Daryl, can you just spend a couple minutes explaining why a bill versus the task force adopting voluntary training standards as we adopt NINA standards? So if you wouldn't mind just giving some background to that on why DORA believes legislative initiative is needed for voluntary training standards.
Sure. So right now there is an effort going across the country, including from organizations such as the American Heart Association, Denise Amber Lee Foundation, and others to try to promote minimum training standards throughout the country. And as a result, we're down to one out of 8 to 11 states that have no minimum training standards for 911 in our statute. Having voluntary standards through an organization like the Colorado Training Standards Institute or through a non-statutory entity such as the task force is good, but it doesn't provide us any sort of statutory cover showing that Colorado has any sort of training standards or other types of standards for 911 call centers. So the idea here is to walk that tightrope by providing statutory language that recognizes the need for minimum standards, but also makes them voluntary and puts the local 911 authorities in the driver's seat on creating those standards. And because it's done through a regulatory process rather than through a statutory process, it also allows the 911 community to update those standards through a rulemaking rather than have to pass another bill in the future to change or update those. So that's the reason, so that when the AHA or other entity comes and looks at Colorado statutes to see what we have on the books in terms of minimum standards for 911, there is something in the statute that covers it, even though the details of it are left to a collaborative regulatory approach rather than a statutory approach.
This is Kimberly, just a follow-up question. Daryl, on the other states, are they voluntary or are they mandatory? And do you forecast this going from voluntary to mandatory? So voluntary being the first step and then down the road being mandatory. So just across the nation, for those states that have adopted them, are they voluntary or mandatory?
I can't say how many are voluntary versus mandatory, but I believe that the majority of them are mandatory. I can't give you a specific number, but a number of them are voluntary. And as far as these go, I would not anticipate them going to mandatory. The entire idea of this and the way the bill is written is to make sure that they stay voluntary. And if anyone wanted to promote a mandatory standards bill in the future, it would probably be through a different agency and not the PUC. The reason why this one, I'm sorry.
Doing all right.
I muted him. Go ahead.
A little crosstalk. The reason why this one is being promoted as being done through the PUC is because it allows for a collaborative, voluntary rulemaking approach through existing relationships that the PUC has through the task force and through our regular contact with local agencies to create those standards, rather than doing it through DPS or DHSEM or another state agency that might not already have those relationships in place.
This is Kimberly. Daryl, do you think that having voluntary standards would meet the litmus test for the push across the nation for training standards? Or is it going to look at it as being, okay, that's cute, but not enough and not meeting what they're asking for or what other states are doing?
I can't speak for the organizations that are pushing for those standards across the country, but I think that with the desire to maintain local control here in Colorado, I would not feel comfortable proposing or supporting mandatory standards. What those other organizations do or say in the future is up to them. And I think the best we can do right now would be to promote voluntary standards and then show that the vast majority of 911 authorities are meeting those voluntary standards through the reporting, and try to identify solutions for those areas where compliance with the voluntary standards may not be high, whether it's additional funding, whether it's additional resources, whatever it takes to help improve the adherence to those voluntary standards. Because they can say, well, it needs to be mandatory, but if almost everyone at least is meeting the voluntary standards, then that argument that it needs to be mandatory, I think, is weakened.
So in your conversation, this is Kimberly again, sorry. With your conversations with NASNA, for those states that do have voluntary, are you able to ask them if they've received any negativity, pushback, hey, that's cute, but not quite enough comments from the agencies that are asking and pushing for standards, voluntary training standards for 911?
Can ask them. I'm not
I think it
aware.
would, I think it would be good for us to know if that has truly met the mark and if they feel as if compliance has been reached and it's meeting what they're asking for, where we have states that have done voluntary training standards.
I can ask them that. I'm not aware of any push in any state that has voluntary standards to change them to mandatory right now. But I will reach out through NASDA and see if any of the states that do have voluntary standards have any feedback on that issue.
That would be great. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Daryl, I'm sorry, I can't seem to find the hand to raise. Can you tell me can you tell us what organizations are pushing for this?
So the American Heart Association is one of them. For instance, just recently, Georgia passed a statewide bill requiring all telecommunicators to have to be certified in telephone CPR, which could be EMD through IAED or APCO meds, as an example. And Denise Amber Lee Foundation has been pushing for this for years. That's their primary purpose, is to promote standards and improved operations in 911 across the country.
And that last one, I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Denise Amber Lee Foundation. I believe they're based out of Florida.
Amber Lee. It's a person's name?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Jennifer. Any other questions or comments? Kimberly.
So not as it pertains to the training standards, just back on legislation in general, as it relates to the enterprise bill, the comment and the report stated waiting for a bill sponsor. Are we anticipating that there will be a bill sponsor to introduce that bill and get it to a drafter? Has it already been to a drafter? I'm just trying to understand the likelihood of that bill being introduced in this session.
Kimberly, this is Jackie.
Yes.
I have not procured a sponsor as of yet. I had some interest, and I just haven't been able to connect with that particular sponsor, and so I do not know. Is the answer to your question. The quick answer to your question.
Okay. And if we do get a bill sponsor for that bill before the next task force meeting, I'm assuming the legislative subcommittee will let all of the task force know. I mean, for my 911 authority specifically, we're very concerned about that bill. We want to look at the language and then be able to make comments, talk to the sponsor and whatnot. So as these bills start to kind of make their way through this process, should we just anticipate the larger group will get notified?
The larger group will be notified at the task force meeting if anything's going forward. The task force, the legislative committee keeps notes on the task force website of each meeting. And we meet approximately every 2 weeks. And yes, if this group wants me to email the entirety of the group when I get a sponsor, if it goes forward this year, so when, then I'd be more than happy to email the entirety of the group. But we do keep notes for every legislative committee meeting on the task force website.
Okay. This is Kimberly. Jackie, I know for me, I'm not attending the legislative subcommittees, even though I'm a member, just because I know that we would oppose that bill and I don't want to be there while you guys are having a strategy conversation. I just didn't think that was respectful or fair. So for me, I can always check the notes if that's the best way, but I think maybe the whole group would probably like to know too, because that is such a critical bill. We're talking about surcharge, we're talking about a board, an enterprise board. There's just it's different, right? There's a lot of pieces that impact 911. So
I will put a note to if and when we get a sponsor to put a note to and just send the whole entire task force a note with the draft.
This is Kimberly. Thank you, Jackie.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jackie. All right, moving down the list, do we have Kelly Bowman in attendance for a 988 report? I didn't see her. Okay, moving on to Equal Access Committee, Holly. Any questions for Holly? Or Holly, did you have anything you wanted to highlight?
This is Holly, nothing additional.
Any questions for Holly?
This is Daryl. Just an additional note. I think, Jennifer, you sent out the final report from CU Boulder about the accessibility for emergency notification systems. So I just wanted to highlight that. If you didn't get it, let us know and we can resend you the link, but otherwise it should be in your email inbox. And that's the bill, or that's the report that was actually required by statute that was passed last year.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, Daryl, and thank you to all of you in the preliminary report that we saw and the presentations that they gave surrounding that. We had very great response from our 911 community in response to the survey that was sent out. So I appreciate everybody who took the time to fill that out and to inform the research into that went into that report. So thank you all very much. All right, moving on to Outage Committee. Tina, did you have anything you wanted to highlight, or does anybody have any questions for Tina Powell?
I don't have anything additional.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, Tina. Any questions for Tina? All right, Jackie Louise, prepaid and collections. Any questions for Jackie?
I have no report at this time.
Kimberly.
I'm just going to be chatty now that you put my mute function back. So the PUC has an audit pending with Verizon, and I'm just curious on the collection side where that's at. The last update I received was it should be ready soon, and that was in December. So just curious if if the PUC staff, if Jolene has given an update recently on that.
I'm going to turn that over to Daryl.
Thank you. Yes, actually, a final audit report has been filed in the proceeding, and I'm sorry I forgot to include that or have it included in the PUC update today. I will send out the link to the proceeding number. Obviously, this took a lot longer than we anticipated. We anticipated doing 4 a year, and we got one done in 1 year. I think part of that is because we chose a very large company for our first audit rather than starting small. And also because this was our first audit, so there was a lot of additional detail that we had to go through. Going forward, we're not going to do necessarily one audit at a time. We will start them on a staggered basis, but I'm anticipating that future audits may also take an extended period of time. So in order to get our 4 a year, Jolene has told me that she does have the capacity to do more than one at a time. So we're going to stagger those and do multiple audits simultaneously. There are some findings in the audit report. The biggest finding is that there is an issue related to the remittance of surcharges for multi-line telephone systems that span multiple states. So if a company has, let's say, 1,000 extensions that they purchased, but those extensions are not all found in one state, but they're all being billed on one bill, that creates a conundrum for the company on how much they need to remit to each state that those 911 lines can be found in, or those extensions can be found in. And Jackie, to raise your hand, click the reactions button at the bottom of the screen. Because that situation is not addressed in statute or in commission rules, that creates a problem for us in terms of telling them what the correct amount is that they should be paying. So we will probably be looking at a future rulemaking to help clarify that situation and provide a formula that the companies should use when they're remitting surcharges. And that will probably affect your local emergency telephone charge remittances as well. So we will definitely be keeping all of you in the loop and consulting with you before we do the notice of proposed rulemaking to make sure that everybody's on board with whatever solution it is that is put forward on that.
Thank you, Daryl. Kimberly had her hand up, and then Jackie.
Sure, Kimberly.
This is Kimberly. Daryl, has the PUC staff decided which 4 carriers they're going to stagger and do this year?
No, what we originally talked about was doing these on a rotating random basis. So we will be selecting 4 companies at random. However, if there are companies that the 911 community in Colorado are having difficulty with or think that we should be looking at, I would entertain suggestions on that.
Great, thank you. And just one more question. Outside of the findings for MLTS across multiple states, do you, from your review of the findings, are there other findings that could impact local surcharge that you think that authorities will start to see an increase or a decrease? Anything that's glaring that should be brought to our attentions as we're pulling that up and reviewing it?
No, I don't believe there was anything that would impact remittances from Verizon to local agencies. But I do think that the MLTS issue might have some impact one way or the other, probably resulting in an increase in remittances to local agencies.
Great, thank you.
Jackie?
Thank you, Kimberly. Jackie?
Yeah, this is Jackie. Should we bring this group together to discuss what we can of the report and any other things that need to be discussed so that the smaller committee can discuss them?
So I think that'd be a good idea. If you want to email me separately, I can make sure that we find a time that works for Jolene as well.
Okay, I'll get you an email out. Thank you.
Joe?
The last, I believe the correct number I had for the number of companies remitting to BRETSA was over 200, but many of them are a few lines. I hope in your random selection, you'll segregate smaller companies from larger companies so we don't wind up doing ones we don't get as much bang for the buck.
We don't want to send the message that smaller companies are necessarily off the hook, but I also recognize that we don't want to do just smaller companies for our audits. So that's a good point, and I agree that we should, even though we're semi-randomizing this, we need to also make sure that we have a mix of smaller and larger companies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, this is Jennifer. Moving on to reports committee. Daryl.
Task force provides a report to the commission every other meeting, and this is not one of those meetings, so there is no report to approve. I don't have anything else to for the group.
Thank you, Daryl. And moving on to the EZNet users group, there was a December report that was posted. It's fairly lengthy, as well as we had a robust meeting yesterday. I have not seen that Kathy was able to join us this morning. So Daryl and I and Danette, who is vice chair, can attempt to answer questions. We did hold elections in that group, and Kathy and Danette will remain as vice chair, or chair and vice chair, sorry, and I will serve as secretary for the EZNet users group. Does anyone have questions or comments or anything else to add to the users group report? Kimberly.
Sorry, this is Kimberly. I'm just going to keep talking on every subject. So the email, you want authority boards to vote on the report, if I'm understanding this right, because I apologize, I had to miss that meeting yesterday. But from a big picture perspective, I think it's critical that everybody takes a look at that, but it's going to go for a vote to the authority boards. Is that correct?
This is Jennifer. Yes. Every authority board has a vote in the EZNet users group. And the EZNet users group has been working on a draft revision of the Next Gen 911 strategic plan for Colorado. There was extensive work done by a group of people on revising that document, and the revision is what I sent out yesterday. And I agree, Kimberly, we would ask that everyone take a good long look at it and make sure that you have a good understanding of what it says. We'll be sending out a request or a ballot to vote in early February. And I believe we've got Joe Bankert, who will be providing some comments to that group as well, on top of what I sent out yesterday. And I invite questions or comments on that.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. All right. GIS committee, we've got some exciting news going on. So I will turn that over to Matt Gage. And if anybody has any questions for Matt, and I'm sure Matt has something to highlight.
Actually, I wasn't going to say much. Nothing really to add to the report. I was going to leave the GIS project more to a resource center representative. Do we have a report from them?
Daryl, I can speak on that, since I made the unfortunate decision of volunteering to lead the ad hoc committee, unless somebody else wants to do it. But yes, the resource center has been awarded $500,000 to conduct a GIS NG911 data project. The first step of that is that I am calling for participants for an ad hoc committee. This is a committee of the Resource Center, not the task force, but it's an ad hoc committee that will be putting together some recommendations for the Resource Center on how to move forward with that. Whether we want to try to put together an RFP, whether we want to try to hire someone to help us put together an RFP. Those are the types of discussions that we'll be having to start with. And I can't say how many times this group will meet, but it will probably be several times at least moving forward. And I would anticipate that the group may also be part of any sort of proposal evaluation committee, excluding any vendors that may want to participate in the committee up to that point. So if you are interested, and I did send this out to the task force, but if you are interested and haven't responded to me yet, please do. Sometime next week, I will be sending out a scheduling poll to find a time for us all to meet. And if anybody else wants to run the committee, please let me know. It was just kind of by default, but it doesn't have to be me. It just needs to be somebody who's willing to herd the cats.
So I think because the money's going to the Resource Center and it's a Resource Center project, it's appropriate that a Resource Center person be running these efforts. But certainly myself, and I sent Daryl's notice out to the task force's GIS committee for consideration for 911 GIS SMEs to help with this.
Matt, and I do agree that it does make sense for a Resource Center board member to be at least facilitating the ad hoc committee, so that's fine. Patty?
Yeah, I know that you said you can't, you don't know how many times the group will meet, but is there a time frame, excuse me, for when this needs to get done in order for the disbursement of the funds? Just trying to figure out our GIS resource person to get involved.
There is not a hard deadline for when the money has to be spent. So I would rather make sure that we do it right than do it fast. I will try to get a first meeting scheduled fairly soon, but that will depend on the availability of the members. And also I'm going to be out for about half the month on vacation in February, so that will also impact it. But my hope is that we can get at least one meeting in before I go out of country.
Daryl, do we want to talk a little bit about how this committee is not a sales opportunity?
So I'm one of the questions that I think we're going to want to discuss on the first meeting is whether we want to allow vendor participation in the ad hoc committee, because I don't want the ad hoc committee to itself become a sales opportunity. This is to provide recommendations to the Resource Center on how to go about selecting a vendor, not for us to tell them who the vendor should be. So this is absolutely not a sales opportunity. However, I think there might be some benefit to having vendors involved in the discussion because they can help us make sure that we're not falling into pitfalls that they have seen in the past regarding development of RFPs. So I think that'll be a good discussion for the committee to have as to what the appropriate participation of vendors might be if in fact we do have any vendors who wish to participate in that process. Does that help, Matt?
Yep, that's fantastic. Thank you, Daryl.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, Daryl and Matt. Moving on to the public safety broadband update. I don't see Kristen on here. But she did provide an update, so that is there for you. Next up, I see PSCS and I see Deanie on. Does anybody have any questions for Deanie, or Deanie, did you have anything to add to your report?
I have nothing to add. Thank you, though.
Thank you. And I think that the PSCS set the radio summit dates. They are May 1st and 2nd. May 1st overlaps with the Colorado NENA APCO conference as well. So you'll have to choose. moving on to our SWIC update. Amanda provided an update here, and Amanda is on the call. So if anybody has any questions for Amanda. Okay, moving on. Division of Fire Prevention and Control. Looks like we've got a meeting coming up next week. Connie, did you have anything last minute to add for DFPC or Colorado 911 Resource Center?
I do not have anything to update for either one. I think it's already been discussed about the GIS project pretty well. And yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you. I saw Karen join earlier. Karen, did you have anything to update or any questions for Karen for Rapid SOS?
Hi, everyone. No, Sam put the updates up there, some new features that we've rolled out. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have, concerns, thoughts, or any requests.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, Karen. And moving on to CCOA, Kimberly, did you have anything last minute to add, or does anybody have any questions for Kimberly?
This is Kimberly. I don't have anything else to add, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kimberly. All right.
Before we move on out of standing reports, I was going to ask, I know we have a lot of standing reports already and it takes up a big portion of our meeting, but I wanted to ask if people thought having a standing report update from the Colorado Training Standards Institute would be a good idea, since they have recently sort of revived themselves. They were kind of in a hiatus state for a while, and now they're being very active again. And I thought maybe that would be a good addition to the standing reports, or if people feel like we have enough of them, that's fine too. And Jennifer, you're more involved in this Training Standards Institute than I am, so I don't know if you have any thoughts on whether the group would even have the capacity to provide a standing report right now.
This is Jennifer. I think that the group would have the capacity to provide a report, and based on early meetings, they're going to have a lot of activity going on. One initiative is to refresh the material from the 40-hour basic class that we put together. And then another is to refresh and update and re-record the ENP study group videos that we have had out there for several years. So I know there'll be a lot of activity. I know the Institute is still looking for participants. They'll be holding elections for chair, co-chair, vice chairs, secretary, treasurer in our meeting in February. So I think there's enough to provide an update, but we could do it, or they could do it rather either on its own or under the resource center, if people would rather not have another report added to the list. And I think we're open to both directions. So what is everybody thinking on that?
This is Jackie. I would be in favor of having the report. I mean, we're not really doing much but asking questions of a report anyway, if they have capacity to put in a written report.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, Jackie. Anyone else?
This is Patty. I would also like to see that added, especially in light of potential legislation around what we're doing with training. So it's in written format. It's not a big deal. Add it. And so.
Jennifer, this is Jeff Irvin. I gave a thumbs up, but it's not ascending, so I don't know if you saw it.
I saw it, but I wasn't sure if you were thumbs up to the report or thumbs up to not having the report.
Thumbs up to the report. It would be thumbs down if not.
Thank you. I see thumbs up from Michael, and I think I saw one pop up from Jody too. So, all right. Sounds like we're generally in favor of adding that report to standing reports. So we'll put that on there. And we are an hour and 40 minutes into our meeting. And so I think I'm going to call for a 10-minute break before we dive into old business and new business, because we have a fairly full agenda for the rest of the meeting time. So please, we will come back at 10 minutes till, so 11:50, and leave this up and open until then. Well, I didn't get any burritos.
Whose fault is that, Jennifer?
I guess it's mine. Welcome back, everybody. All right. This is Jennifer. So diving back into the agenda, when we held elections last meeting, we inadvertently elected Kathy Rayleigh to a second 911 representative position because she was already on the roster as a 911 representative. So we have an open 911 representative position. And I would entertain nominations from the floor. If we get more than one nomination, then I think Daryl, what we would do is send out a ballot and hold an election via email. Is that the right way?
I think there's a couple of different ways we could do it. We could do a floor vote of the people on the call today, which is difficult to do remotely. So we could have people send us an email, or if you wanted to hold it, you could send out an email asking people to vote between now and the next meeting, whichever you prefer.
This is Jennifer. I think we could probably hold an email vote while we're here if we need to. But I would ask for nominations, either self or nominating others, to fill that open 911 representative for a 2-year term, please. 2-year term, right, Holly?
So it would expire in 2025. Wait, is that 2 years? Yeah, they'd go all 2024 and then all 2025, and
right. It would expire at the end of 2025.
Correct.
So do we have anyone on the call who is not already a 911 representative that would like to serve? Or anyone you'd like to throw under the proverbial bus?
And I would say too that if we don't get any volunteers today, you could put it out by email to the whole email list and ask people to send you nominations between now and the next meeting.
This is Jennifer. That sounds fine. I'll let the silence draw out a little longer. All right, that's what we'll do. We will ask for volunteers after this meeting via email. So then moving on down the list, we actually already talked about the Next Gen 911 strategic plan draft in the EZNet users group update. So unless anybody has any questions on that, we will move. And Kathy wasn't able to join us still. I don't see her joining. Kimberly has a question.
Yeah, just a question or maybe a request as the voting comes out. I don't know how you're going to be recording those, and if perhaps with the voting, there can be a sheeted document that lists who is in favor, who is not in favor, just so that goes on file with it, just as a recommendation.
I haven't actually held a vote yet, so I'm going to defer to Daryl on that one. While he's eating his burrito.
Sorry, are you talking about the vote on the strategic plan?
Yes.
Yes, last year we used a Google form, which does keep track of who votes what. If there's a desire for that to be made public, we can at least, I think if we let people know ahead of time that their vote will be public, then we can do that.
This is Kimberly. I think it could be good for, people to know if they want to be on the record opposing it, even if they're in the minority, at least that gets recorded and documented, and that could also be good for conversations going forward.
Well, the only thing I'll say is that this is a vote. We are facilitating it as commission staff, but it's not, it's an EZNet users group vote. So I think whether or not that be made public or not would be up to Kathy as the chair of the EZNet users group. But if Kathy doesn't object, I certainly don't.
This is Jennifer. Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, Daryl. And Kimberly has the floor next as well to talk about challenges that she's discovered on 10-digit wireless call delivery. So it's all yours, Kimberly.
Thank you. So we upgraded our 911 equipment, and this is just something that we found that we are working through and folded in PUC staff to assist with. And so this is just more of an awareness for everyone. And you may already know this and have encountered it, but as we were updating our CPE equipment, we also were testing lines and going through our test plan. And we were very surprised and concerned when we found that some 911 calls were being delivered on 10-digit after maybe the second or third one was placed versus rolling over routing or being delivered specifically on the 911 SIP sessions. So we started to really peel away what the issue was, and that we found that this particular carrier up in northern Colorado has very limited capacity for 911. So even though we have 48 SIP sessions, they can only process 2 simultaneous 911 calls, and the third one in their network will go to 10-digit. And that was a pretty big concern for us. Obviously, you don't get Annie Ellie. It's just a big deal. So we feel like the FCC should be engaged on this. We feel like carriers should have to have a capacity, and as they add on subscribers, they add on capacity. And if their capacity is exceeded, that those calls should at least maybe roam to another network and be processed on a 911 SIP session. So that's the problem. We were also very surprised on the limited amount of capacity. Simultaneous calls in one of my communities was 4 for a very large tier 1 carrier. All they could support and can support today is 4 911 calls in their network. So pretty big concern. I don't know if other people have encountered that or not, but I did fold in Daryl and Jennifer. They've reached out to NASNA, reached out to the FCC to at least have this conversation. And my recommendation would be to have some sort of NOPR with a requirement resulting in requiring those calls to go, again, roam to another network. But with our wireless partners on part of the task force, I thought this would be a great place for us to talk through this. I did also reach out to CTIA to try to have the conversations with the association, and never heard back. So any questions or comments? Daryl.
Just want to let you know, I did get an email back from my contact at the FCC this morning, and they're going to discuss it internally and get back to me. If it results in any sort of real-time meetings instead of just email, I'm going to do my best to get you looped into that as well, since I think you're going to be able to explain the situation better than I would.
That would be great, and I would appreciate it. Thanks, Daryl.
This is Jennifer. Joe's got his hand up. Joe, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. In the ESINet users group, we've had discussions that the 10-digit numbers to which 911 calls route or are routed terminated, making them non-routable so that you wouldn't have spam calls, randomly dialed number spam calls coming in on 911 lines. And we wouldn't want to make them non-routable if they're being used to terminate. I'm not sure if they're terminating to your non-emergent numbers or to the 911 translated numbers, but we want to make those changes if we have carriers routing 911 calls to the translated numbers.
And this is Kimberly. Joe, 2 separate issues. So they're routing them to a 10-digit admin line. They're not routing them to those non-dialable 10-digit numbers that are surprisingly dialable and we're getting spammed on. So 2 separate issues. And so yeah, they're routing them to a 10-digit admin line at the PSAP. So very concerning in our opinion.
Jackie's got her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Do we know if this carrier is prevalent through the state or just in northern Colorado? I'm trying to figure out on my end what I can do with my authorities and PSAPs.
Yeah. Jackie, I have no reason to protect the carrier. So the carrier is AT&T. And what we were doing, we were testing AT&T devices. And at first, the limitation we thought, well, maybe this is for FirstNet. Maybe it's tied to FirstNet because a lot of my government agencies up here have moved over to FirstNet. And it doesn't, it's AT&T, commercial AT&T FirstNet. So the carrier that we specifically are tackling this problem with is AT&T. So big tier one carrier, huge presence. And again, it impacts commercial and even your FirstNet Black SIM devices as well. So throughout the entire state, I would recommend if you want to do a test, it would be interesting if you had phones, you know, your capacity for SIP sessions. For example, in my Fort Collins community, AT&T can only process 4 simultaneous 911 calls, FirstNet or commercial. Well, that's a really big deal. In Estes Park, they could only process 2. So the limitations are huge. I did reach out to the AT&T Public Safety Division and I gave them our FCC PSAP IDs and asked them to confirm their capacity. So if you don't want to do testing just to see the problem for yourself, you can always reach out to them and ask for that information back so you have the capacity number. We did also do testing with Verizon, who is another large carrier up here in Colorado, and we were able to roll effectively from PSAP to PSAP, and we stayed in the 911 network without going over to 10-digit. I have not reached out to Verizon or other carriers to say, hey, can I have the same information about your capacity? Really, we just didn't experience that through all of our testing.
That's very helpful. Thank you. I will start that process and keep you posted.
This is Jennifer. We had Daryl and then Jenny Santana and then Matt with their hands up.
Just wanted to mention, it's been a few years, but I recall a similar situation in one of the Eastern Plains PSAPs. I think it might have been Prowers County, but don't quote me on that. And it was a different carrier. So I have the feeling that this is not specifically an AT&T issue. It might be it might be across all carriers, but maybe our next person with their hand up might be able to help answer that.
Thank you, Jenny.
Sure, thank you. This is Jenny Santana with T-Mobile. I cannot answer that question, Daryl, but I wanted to thank Kimberly for bringing this issue to my attention, to everyone's attention. I do not know if this is an issue for T-Mobile, but I will circle back with our federal 911 and our PSAP team here internally and run that down. And Kimberly, I can also try to get, at least through my contact with CTIA, get them to respond to you if that would be helpful, or give it a shot at least.
This is Kimberly. Jenny, that would be great. I reached out to the same folks that we were working with before when we were tackling different items. So if you can maybe poke prod, I'm happy to get on a call with your group and CTIA. We can even do some testing if you want to look at it, or if they just want to pull their quote unquote trunk capacity, that could be good. But again, definitely something we would love to solve collectively with our wireless partners versus having it come down from a rulemaking with the FCC.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
And Matt.
Thank you. Kimberly, I would just like to double check on something you said. The FirstNet call capacity is, or I should say AT&T's 911 call capacity is subject to the load on their FirstNet call traffic, right? So if they have a capacity of 4 and they have 2 FirstNet phone conversations going on, they're effectively down to 2 available for 911 calls?
Correct. And this is Kimberly, correct. So total of 4 in one particular community of mine, so Fort Collins, which is large, regardless if it's FirstNet, regardless if it's commercial. If all 4 are filled, the 5th one goes to a 10-digit admin line. In Estes Park, it's 2. In Loveland, it's 2.
Wow.
Shocking. Wow. it really surprised me. So I do think it would be great for people to test, or I put in chat the AT&T network design engineer that provided that information. I emailed her, asked her for our capacity, provided the PSAP ID from the FCC, and then she replied back with that. So if you would like that for your area, I think it would be really helpful.
Wow, I would love to have that.
And I did also make the FirstNet Authority aware. So this is a limitation in the AT&T network. And so I did loop in Kim Coleman Madison. So she's just aware of the concern and brought this up in a meeting with FirstNet and AT&T.
Man, just thinking about that for Montrose, we probably don't have four if Fort Collins has four. I can imagine at any given time, all of AT&T's Montrose capacity is taken up with FirstNet phone calls over here.
And this is Kimberly. Our concern too is how many of our government partners have moved over to FirstNet in 2023 alone. So the majority, I think our last holdout is Larimer County Sheriff's Office, and they're in the process. And so adding on again, all that subscriber count onto the network. So just shy of 1,000 employees. There's no algorithm that AT&T says, oh, you have this many more people, subscribers on the network. We're going to add this additional capacity, trunk capacity for 911 specifically.
Well, thank you very much for bringing this up again with more details.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kimberly, this is Jennifer. We've got two more hands up, but I have a clarifying question. So when they have that throttling, is it by cell tower or cell tower sector, or is it by a geographical boundary? How are they dividing that?
So when we talk about throttling, let's just kind of talk about capacity. So specifically the 911 capacity, regardless of however busy or slow their network is, they can only support 4 simultaneous 911 calls or 2, just depending on my community's period. So they can't throttle it up or throttle it down. That is how many simultaneous 911 calls that they can support.
So if they have 4 in Fort Collins, then the 2 in Estes Park go to 10-digit, or they can have 4 in Fort Collins and 2 in Estes.
Right. So Fort Collins can handle 4, 5th goes to 10-digit delivered to that PSAP in Fort Collins. Simultaneously, there could be 2 in my Estes community, and then the 3rd one goes to their 10-digit admin line.
So it's by PSAP boundary.
It's by PSAP boundary, correct.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
We had Ryan's hand up and then Joe Bankards.
Okay, hi, this is Ryan. Daryl had mentioned that a PSAP in Eastern Colorado, and I think what he was mentioning is different topic than what Kimberly brought up. It was a different issue. And in those cases, I remember we talked about it pretty heavily. That's in those cases where inbound roamers coming into a network for some reason don't identify their callback number to the system. So the call does get to the PSAP. It's just coming in appearing like a no SIM type call or an unregistered mobile without a phone number. So that was the dilemma we were discussing there. And I think it was Kit Carson County. So a little bit different scenario than what we're talking here. I hadn't heard this one either that Kimberly brought up as far as being limited on a number of 911 calls that could be going on simultaneously.
Thank you, Ryan. And Joe?
So this is kind of stunning. It's been a number of years, but I was told at one time that Brett's of PSAPs had gotten over 100 phone calls from one accident on US 36 because with the tie-ups, it took a while for flashing lights to get on scene and people kept calling until the lights were there. And so after you have the calls start rolling to 10-digit numbers, the 10-digit numbers, admin lines, they don't roll to other PSAPs, do they?
This
That's
is Kimberly.
Once you fill up those, your trunk full of 10-digit lines, you start getting busy signals.
Yeah, this is Kimberly. It depends on your Viper design, on how you set it up. So in our Viper, we can do a ring no answer, but you're right. When you're at capacity on however many license, if you have SIP or analog trunks that you have that handle admin lines, you're right, you're full. So in the 911 world, there's the rollover at the selective router. So all of your SIP sessions are full. It would roll to your backup that's programmed by Lumen at that selective router, or you can have a different kind of role in your CPE equipment. And we have both set up here. But the delivery of these calls to a 10-digit admin, you're absolutely right. You're going to reach capacity, whether it's by SIP licensing on your PBX side or by just number of analog capacity if you have analog phone lines for admin. And it is shocking, and I'm frankly a little bit glad that all of you aren't saying, well, duh, Kimberly, how did you not know this? Because I was shocked. I was completely floored, and I opened up tons of trouble tickets with AT&T, and we were tracking this as a 911 outage and lots of issues to find out, nope, it's as designed.
This is Jennifer. I appreciate Kimberly bringing this up and glad that you found it out in order so that we could all be aware in the first place. But I do encourage everybody to do some testing, and I am sure that we'll be having further conversation about this.
Kimberly, this is Ryan again over at Viero. Did AT&T have a reason that the calls were going through that way in the first place, that they were going 10-digit versus the way they should be?
This is Kimberly. Ryan, the response back is that's the design based on capacity and need and usage. So that is all that they provisioned. They offered one additional, a third in Estes Park that they could do right away from a capacity, but any other increase that was not available. So if I wanted to go from 4 simultaneous 911 calls in Fort Collins to the max amount of my SIP sessions, that's going to create some engineering work from them. So,
Whoops, go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah. It's okay. So it's how they designed their network. Again, concerning because I didn't understand that to be an option or something that should happen right now.
Okay. Are you saying when the SIP sessions are exhausted, then it goes to the 10-digit? And I think that's what we call, for lack of a better term, phase 0. A lot of us refer to it as
right.
phase
So,
0.
Right, not our SIP sessions, but the number of simultaneous, AT&T is calling them trunks. When their 911 trunks are full, it goes to phase 0 and is delivered on a 10-digit admin line, correct?
Like their connections for 911 into the
The
911 network.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So they have probably leased a very small capacity to be able to support simultaneous 911 calls.
Okay. Yeah, and I've never heard of that on our network, for instance. This is Ryan again. Each one is evaluated, and we work with Intrado on that. Each PSAP is evaluated based on POPs, et cetera, and we have a number of trunk selects and ESRKs, depending on the size of the PSAP, to cushion for capacity. So, yeah, that's surprising to me too. Okay.
Well, this is Kimberly, and with our wireless partners on the task force, we would love your help as these conversations go forward, as Jennifer pointed out, because again, collectively as a team, not to gang up on AT&T, but as a team, if we as a task force can help solve this or make a recommendation or make a request across the state, especially as other pockets or the entire state learns their area of capacity from this carrier, it would be great for us to go forward and support a change.
Okay, yeah, yes.
This is Matt. I think if we step back and take a look at from an even bigger view, in the inverse, this is a problem for us and our agencies that are FirstNet users as well. We're thinking that those phones and capacity is going to be there to support us in some of our worst, most busiest times, depending on FirstNet.
Matt, you're exactly right, which is why the migration over to FirstNet for some of my partner agencies is not going to happen now.
Go ahead,
And
Joe. Oh,
and I
sorry.
believe, I'm sorry, I was just going to add, and I believe some of the existing customers are adding dual SIMs just to add that level of connectivity and comfort that they will be able to have the ability to get to 911. So Fort Collins, for example, has added in T-Mobile. I think Loveland's going to add in T-Mobile for that level of comfort to be able to reach 911.
Joe, you've got your hand up. And Joe, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that again. Instead of all of the authorities contacting AT&T to find out how many 911 calls they can simultaneously get, should we have someone contacting AT&T to find out that statewide, requesting that data? I don't know they would respond to the PUC because they probably yell, you can't regulate us, but it seems to me it might be more efficient if we and raise it to a higher level to AT&T if we're asking for that information statewide.
This is Kimberly. Joe, I'm not sure if I provided them with everyone's PSAP IDs, if they would release that to me either, especially now that this has been raised as such an issue for them. They may be a little bit more protective of it, but I don't know if they would deny the PUC for asking that, or even like Kathy on behalf of the EZNet group. This is a 911 issue impacting all of us, so even
Or the
having them on
outage
a
committee, maybe the outage committee, because
yeah,
that'll be calls that we may not be able to receive.
right.
This is Daryl. If there is a desire for this to be sent from the PUC, I'm certainly happy to do so. It's you're right, Joe, that they might say we are not under a PUC jurisdiction, but sometimes they'll play nice and provide information anyway.
So this is Kimberly. I think from a what we're charged to do at the 911 task force, we're supposed to report on 911 in Colorado, the health, all of that. I think it's very appropriate for the task force to ask for. So maybe it's on behalf of the task force. This is an issue we're tackling on behalf of the task force. It's a conversation we're having. It impacts 911 across the entire state. So I see it being very well placed here. I guess if they say no, then we can always circle back. But again, I would love to solve the problem with cooperation and coordination versus going through a NOPR. What Daryl did find is there are some problems across the nation that this has occurred. So we're not isolated in Colorado. So I guess that should comfort us a little bit.
This is Jennifer. I'm surprised that it hasn't come up before now, honestly. With the amount of simultaneous calls that our PSAPs get, especially along the major highway corridors. So it
Kimberly,
sounds
this is
like
Daryl. I would agree with that approach. I think coming from the task force makes the most sense.
Jeff Winkleman, you've got your hand up.
I'm in agreement with this as far as coming from the task force, but I also will add that if there is some type of rejection, I can possibly talk to Tim Kunkelman and see if maybe coming from the LEC in the state, that might work as well.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions or comments or discussion?
So I think just from an action item, Jennifer, would you like me to, do you want to download the list or the email, or who should send the email on behalf of the task force?
Well, at the end of this meeting, Jody's going to be the chair. So I would ask that Jody consider being the one to send the email.
I can send the email.
Jody, I can package up some information for you and get it over to you, so then you can just massage it, make it sound better, and send it.
That sounds good.
Jody, if you would rather not send it from your work email, we have a general task force email address that we don't use very often, but we could use it to send the email out.
Okay, that would be great. I'll get with you on that.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. All right, this is Jennifer. Moving on, we do have vice chair and secretary elections for the task force. At the end of this meeting, as I said, Jody will ascend to chair, but we need to elect a vice chair and a secretary. And because I haven't done it before, I'm going to defer to Daryl to walk us through the process on that.
There isn't anything particularly formal about it. We can take nominations from the floor. Sometimes we only get one nominee for each position, which makes it easy. If we get multiple nominations, then it's up to you how you want to do the voting. If we can just do we could just do a voice vote on the call today, or we can have people email me their votes, or they could that would probably be the best two options. I was also going to say we could have them email us between now and the next meeting, but I don't see any reason to delay it unless you find a reason to do so.
I don't see a reason to delay. So if we get multiple nominees for the two positions, then we'll just have everyone email their vote to Daryl, and we'll have an answer by the end of the meeting. So I would ask for nominations for vice chair and secretary. Those are open to any voting member. And if Holly would like to put up the voting member list, I can stop sharing. And while she's doing that, if you would like to volunteer or nominate someone, the floor is open for that.
I have no idea if y'all can see if I have the list up.
We can see.
We can see it.
Okay. I hate Zoom sometimes. Wait, I don't know how to make this so you can see everyone at once, but
You could make it smaller, but then we couldn't read it.
right. I don't know if that's very helpful. That just makes it too tiny to see, but
Come on, guys, don't be shy. This is a great opportunity to serve. I think Jody could tell you that it has been a pretty easy year as vice chair and not too intimidating.
I can. This is Jody. I was so intimidated right at first, and I've learned so much over the year. So it's not scary. It's not too terribly time consuming. You'll learn a ton, and I will be there for you throughout the entire year to kind of walk you through and get you comfortable with all of the things that are involved. And the things that I don't know, Jennifer and Daryl are always available for questions and assistance. So it's super easy. It's fun. You learn a lot. So don't be scared.
Thank you, Jody.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yes.
This is Tina.
Hi, Tina.
I would nominate myself, I think.
For vice chair or secretary?
Vice chair.
Excellent. Do we have a second for Tina's nomination?
This is Carl, I'll second.
Thank you, Carl. This is Jennifer. I'm happy to stand for election as secretary, but I'm also happy to not stand if someone else is interested.
This is Carl, I'll second the nomination.
Thank you, Carl. So we have a nomination for vice chair and we have a nomination for secretary. Are there any other nominations for either position? Hearing none, I will call a vote for both positions. All those in favor of electing Tina Powell as vice chair and myself as secretary, please signify by saying aye.
It was Tina Bonetta, wasn't it?
No, it was Tina Powell.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much and congratulations, Tina.
Thank you.
All right. And the next item on the agenda is Resource Center board members, and that is Daryl's item.
Congratulations, Tina. So every year there are a certain number of Resource Center board members whose terms expire. There are 5 members on the Resource Center board, 4 of which are appointed by the task force. The 2 members that are expiring this year are Vicki Pickett and my position. My position is the one that's appointed by the PUC. So the only one that's up for a vote is Vicki's position. And unfortunately, I don't know if Vicki is on today.
Vicki is not on today.
Vicki is not on today. I think she might be up for a break. I'm not sure. But I think based on the charter of the Resource Center itself, today is the day we need to have a vote on filling that position. So I would ask if anybody has any nominations for Resource Center Board. And by the way, this is not tying you into any particular officer position. The officers will be selected at the next meeting of the Resource Center Board.
Thank you, Daryl. Are there any eligibility requirements?
No, you just have to be appointed by the task force.
Thank you.
This is a 911 representative position, however, so it should be somebody who is either an employee or associated with a PSAP or 911 authority.
Thank you, Daryl. And Joe's got his hand up.
Just, do you want to text Vicki to see if she's interested or wants a break?
Yes, I will do that right now. And maybe we can, do we have anything else on the agenda? Maybe
Yes,
we can come back to this in a few minutes.
Yes, we can determine our in-person meeting locations and come back.
Okay. I will text her right now and then we can come back to this.
Thank you, Daryl. Okay, I am skipping over the GIS project committee volunteers, but that's because we already talked about that. So the next item on the agenda is to determine our 2024 in-person meeting locations. So traditionally, we hold in-person meeting options for our May, July, and September meetings, trying to catch the time in our beautiful state when it's less likely to snow and people can travel. And we try to hold them in a variety of locations around the state so that we can encourage participation by those who may not be able to always travel. So with that, I would ask for volunteers for locations to host those 3 meetings. Typically, the host also provides lunch, so we can enjoy some lunch and networking outside of the meeting. And with that, I will open it up to volunteers. Who would like to host and which month?
Jennifer, this is Jackie at AdCom. We can host in September.
That is great. Thank you.
Okay. Jennifer, this is Jody. We can host May, I believe, unless there's some prettier jurisdiction in the mountains that would, like to host, so we could all go there instead. But Denver can host May.
Thank you, Jody. So now we need preferably someone on the western slope or maybe in the southern or northern part of the state. For July.
It's been quite a few years since we went to Steamboat. Can we kind of suggest people who should volunteer?
Well, I can always reach out to them and ask if they're willing. And Steamboat is gorgeous in the summer. That would be Routt County. Jim Cullen up there in Routt County. And they do have a meeting space. So I can ask them.
Jennifer, this is Jody. And if somebody else wants to host and Routt County, after you reach out to them, wants to, they can take my spot, Denver's spot. So.
Thank you. Do we have any other either volunteers or suggestions for locations where the group wants to go? I like that. I like traveling around the state, so.
Maybe people need to get approvals before they volunteer. And so maybe it'd be easier if we don't do it this meeting, but you email to the beautiful parts of the state, which is the whole state, and suggest, ask who might want to host.
I can certainly do that as well. All right, well, we will announce, or more to come probably in the March meeting, solidify those. But please do plan to attend in person for the May, July, and September meetings if you can. There will also always be the virtual option. And the calendar invites for all of the meetings did go out. So you should have those on your calendar as well as they are always on the task force website with access information. So thank you to AdCom in Denver, and we'll see about Steamboat and anywhere else that might volunteer in the interim. Thank you. Daryl, were you able to hear from Vicki?
And thank you, Joe, for prompting me to text her, because she is willing to stay on the Resource Center board. So the question is if anybody else would like to propose any other nominations or self-nominations. In which case a voting member of the task force could vote to, or make a motion to appoint Vicki for another 2 years to the Resource Center board.
This is Matt. So moved.
Jeff Winkleman, a second.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt and Jeff. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries and Vicky is nominated or appointed rather, sorry.
I will let her know.
Thank you. So at this time, I will open it up to anyone who has anything else for the good of the order. Hearing none, I did want to update the task force that I started holding regional, I see your hand, Kimberly. I started holding regional conversations with PSAP managers and directors regarding contingent and alternate routing. The purpose is to have Entrado and Lumen on the line to explain the differences in those contingent and alternate routing, and then to discuss what the routing plans were among the PSAPs to make sure that we weren't creating a failure loop or that we weren't overloading one particular PSAP in the event of multiple outages. So the first conversation was held the first week in January with the South Central region. It was very well attended and received. And I want to thank our Entrado partners and our Lumen partners for helping and providing information in those conversations. The next one, we ended up having to reschedule because people had incidents happening that they weren't able to attend. So I'm working on rescheduling that, and I will reach out to the next region to schedule that conversation as well. So don't be surprised when you hear from me regarding those. And if you have any questions, happy to help. And Kimberly, you had your hand up.
This is Kimberly. Thanks, Jennifer. I just wanted to throw out there a request or consideration or discussion for the task force that we move vendor discussions back to the end of the meeting. I understand why we moved them to the front, or maybe even better, we do them in the off meetings and the lunch and learns versus having vendor discussions. I just feel like we have a lot of business that we should be tackling at the task force, and that taking the time for product demonstrations, especially if it's not really tied to any problem that we're tackling or item we're trying to solve, can be time sensitive and time consuming. For us, we also have our legal involved. And so for anyone who has legal that attends the task force meetings, you may be paying that fee for them to sit through a presentation of a vendor that may not be needed. So I just wanted to throw it out there as maybe something that the task force can discuss and consider an adjustment to.
Thank you, Kimberly. Daryl, you got your hand up.
I don't have any preference as to whether the vendor presentations are at the beginning or the end of the meeting. I did want to say that we do, and I know that Jennifer did this, when we contact people or they contact us wanting to present to the task force, we do tell them that it is supposed to be an educational presentation and not a sales pitch. I feel like today's presentation, maybe that message was not fully received. So I'll get with Jennifer and we'll talk about maybe how we can help reinforce that message in the future to avoid obvious sales pitches. But as far as whether the vendor presentation is at the beginning or end of the meeting, I think that's entirely up to the membership of the task force.
And this is Jennifer, and I would turn that over to Jody as incoming chair to make that determination, as well as with the rest of the task force.
This is Jody. No, I agree. The educational presentations are beneficial. I'm impartial as to whether or not they're at the beginning or the end. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm thinking the beginning would be best, and maybe we let them know that they need to limit those presentations to maybe 15 minutes or whatever the time frame the group agrees upon. But in the beginning, so that they can drop off, so we can discuss the more pressing issues that they don't necessarily need to listen to.
This is Matt. I'm trying to remember why we moved them from the end to the beginning. I think it was because of folks dropping off and not sticking around for them. Does that sound right to anyone?
Mm-hmm.
It was a combination of that, Matt, and the fact that some of our meetings went really long, so they were just hanging around for a very long time waiting to do their presentation.
Okay.
And it would have, so it was more of a courtesy so that they could drop off afterwards if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, you've got your hand up.
I think I've been at in-person meetings where the room kind of empties out, particularly if we have a lunch and some people are getting lunch and other people are leaving, and then they start the presentation and like no one's online and most people have left, and that's kind of embarrassing.
Alternatively, we are doing the lunch and learns on the off months in between the task force meetings. If, we did that because we were getting so many requests to present that we had the ability to expand it to the lunch and learns. If people feel like we would like to keep these meetings short, we could stop having vendor presentations as part of the task force meeting and just do the lunch and learns.
This is Kimberly. I would just advocate for that. I think from a voice logger perspective, for example, the audience that I would want to hear that discussion is not just me. It may be my technical person. There could be a good discussion. So I think as we're tackling items and we have a vendor we want to fold into the items, I think that's a great reason to have a lunch and learn. These meetings, we have a lot, and there's probably a lot more that we could go into depth on and have discussions. It is such a great task force group with our vendor partners and then the representation around the state. I think we should be tackling all these business items of the task force. And when we're trying to solve problems or fold in vendors, I think that's a great use of our time for those lunch and learns, or even a meeting in the off months, another task force meeting that is dedicated to that particular discussion item. I would just advocate for that. Again, if our purpose is for educational, I would probably fold in a few more people for that discussion on different topics. If we were talking about satellite, for example, voice loggers, we're going to fold in, maybe do a whole presentation from Rapid SOS about their new developments and where they're going. All that stuff's great, but again, maybe a different audience in addition to task force folks.
I saw a text flash by somebody suggesting starting at 9:30 and then our meetings would start at 10. I don't know if there'd be enough people showing up or getting online at 9:30, but that would be a way, so they have a hard limit of when they have to complete their presentation. And we know when the meeting's going to start, that's business.
Ultimately, I think the amount of time that we're scheduling seems to be sufficient. I mean, we're scheduled till 1 today, and it looks like we're going to be done by then. Maybe we could just devote the first half hour to the presentation, and then people who don't care about the presentation can join at 10:30.
That's a good balance, either that or only doing the lunch and learns, so that task force members who may not be interested in the resolution or the presentation know when to sign in and not spend their time on the presentation when they don't want to.
And Jackie's got her hand up.
Yeah, this is Jackie. I kind of agree with Kimberly that if they were separate in a lunch and learn, then we could pick and choose and pick the people who really need to attend that particular vendor or don't need to attend that particular vendor. They're important. I really kind of missed the way we used to have a little more conversation with reports and stuff that we're talking about, and have people be able to give their opinions, pro or con, on like the legislative committee. Sometimes I'd like to delve into that a little bit further, just because I'd like to see, as the chair of that committee, I'd really kind of like to hear from the pro and cons at this level for the people who aren't on that meeting, the legislative committee, because we have a very diverse group. And as the chair, I hate to be, selfish, but as the chair, I really like having, a way to say, oh yeah, my group's behind me and we're going forward. Or I have an idea of why someone's not in support of one thing or another. And I'd like to have deeper conversations with this group about those types of things.
Thanks, Jackie. Matt, and then Kimberly.
That's operator error. Forgot to take my hand down.
No problem. Kimberly.
And Jackie, I agree completely, because when you're out, just on the legislative example, when you're out working and trying to find a sponsor, one of the first questions they're going to have is, what kind of hiccups am I going to have? What kind of opposition am I going to have? Who's going to be upset about the bill? Well, without socializing it, diving into it, and being able to, even at the task force level, you can't anticipate all of the opposition, but at least you would have a better readout for your potential bill sponsors of what that could look like. So I think the purpose of our task force, our charter, our mission really is to dive into these issues, the health of the 911 network. And some of those items we talk about, the EZNet user group probably should also filter over and be discussed by our BES at the task force. So I think there's a lot that we can and should be doing to dive into 911 in Colorado, the health of the 911 network, and what's going on, like this wireless issue. All those kind of items. And if our meeting is shorter, our meeting's a little bit shorter. I mean, I think it's okay as long as we're talking and tackling the items we're supposed to be doing. So therefore, every other meeting, that report is solid and accurate, and it's showing all the items that we're working on and discussing.
Thank you, Kimberly. And Joe?
Yeah, I preferred when we actually had the reports delivered, at the meeting and the discussion. I know the written reports go out. I know they're there. I plan on getting up an hour earlier so I can read all through them. In addition to the other stuff I try and get done before the meeting, and I never do. And it's helpful to have the reports to keep apprised of what's going on. And everybody's busy. I can't imagine I'm the only one. I mean, maybe I am.
Nope.
I think we're definitely all busy.
This is Jody. Very excellent conversation about all of this. And after hearing all of the points and the reasoning behind it, I think that maybe it is more appropriate to have those at the lunch and learns. A lot of those points I didn't think of in the beginning, but after hearing all the discussion about it, it does make sense. If there's something that maybe is specific to one of the topics that we're talking about that maybe directly relates to it, then maybe we can invite those. But it all does make sense to me. So I'm fine with deferring all of the educational pieces to the lunch and learns.
Sounds like a plan. All right. Having had that conversation, we do have February's Lunch and Learn confirmed, and it will be a presentation from Telera as a solution for alternates if the CenturyLink network goes down. We heard from FirstNet in November about that. Telera has a solution as well that they want to present to us. So I will send out the invite for that shortly. And then at the March task force meeting, we will have just the agenda and no presentation, and do that going forward. Sounds great. Thank you, Kimberly. Anything else for the good of the order? Joe, you got your hand up. And you're on mute. Maybe that was a thumbs up instead.
I'm sorry. I understood Jackie had suggested we go back to having the full reports, which I seconded, kind of, not a member. Are we going to do that also?
Jody?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question. Say that one more time.
Joe was asking if we are also going to go back to having the full reports as part of the meeting instead of having them as standing reports and then highlights. And from a secretary's perspective, I would just maybe suggest that we have that standing report go out ahead of time, the document, because it helps people prepare for the meeting. But I'm certainly not opposed to having deeper discussions about the reports in the meeting. Jackie had her hand up.
And yes, Jennifer, that's what I was going to say, that I'm not at all opposed to doing the written report, because I think we do need the opportunity to kind of glance at it before the meeting, so that we know what we want to go into deeper. I do want to delve deeper into reports that are important, however.
Agreed.
This is Jody. Yeah, I agree. I think it's helpful for me to have those standing reports ahead of time as well, to be able to review things and prompt discussion. So I think without the presentations, with everybody knowing that we have a little bit of extra time to get deeper into the conversations, I think that will prompt those conversations to happen. So.
Jody, this is Jennifer. I'm just looking at the chat, and we have a couple of people who are saying report summaries and not the full report. And maybe we can like thread that needle and have that standing report go out ahead of time. And then let's try to find a good balance between, obviously, we don't want to read the report to people on the call, but definitely having those deeper dive discussions that I think people are looking for. Matt's got his hand up.
I was going to break out my Ben Stein presentation style.
Bueller.
Jennifer, this is Jeremy Schubach with a thumbs up on that comment. And I tend to think getting the reports out ahead of time is really helpful, but not rereading it, to your point, but to do a summary version of it and rely on people to do their homework in the meeting itself, I think is really helpful. I think it opens the opportunity for dialogue, but at the same time doesn't just rehash stuff that people can access on their own. My thoughts.
Thanks, Jeremy. And Matt, did you have more, or were you just contributing your Ben Stein?
I was actually going to say the same thing. For my part, for the GIS committee, it will be very abbreviated, unless it turns into questions and discussion.
Joe, got your hand up.
I think one of the things that I found particularly helpful in the past is in Darrow's report, he would go through the dockets, the proceedings that were going on, all of them. And that kind of helped me to check and see if I was missing anything and, hear what people were thinking about those, which is always helpful. And that at least I would like to have that part.
I can certainly do that.
Maybe have the PUC report as one that we do verbally, and then maybe have discussions on the other reports as necessary.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I am also in favor of deeper dive discussions. I think one of our strengths is the continued collaboration statewide among the 911 community and also our commercial partners and vendors. So I appreciate Kimberly bringing that up. I saw that in my email earlier, and I'm glad you brought it up in the conversation. So thank you so much. All right. Does anybody else have anything else for the good of the order?
Are we at new business?
I'm sorry?
Are we at new business?
Oh, we've been at new business. Did you have something else?
I just wanted to bring one thing up. I've mentioned this before in other meetings, and I was quite alarmed yesterday when South Metro Fire responded to a smoldering EV in a residential structure with a neighboring hybrid next to it, and managed to get it out and blanket it and hauled off. I live in a multifamily dwelling here in Belmar, and we have at least 4 EVs in our underground parking, and are going to be expanding our charging capability. And so I know I'll be reaching out to Jeffcom and West Metro Fire as the president of our HOA board, and starting a thought process or conversation about what kind of CAD permits we need to have on file and what perhaps additional fire suppression precautions we need to take in our building, just anticipating the inevitable. So I just thought I'd throw that out there as food for thought and wonder if any of y'all are thinking the same thing.
Thank you, Jeff. Thoughts?
On that note, I move to adjourn.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity to serve as vice chair and chair. It has been a privilege and a pleasure to serve, and I'm happy to hand the gavel over to Jody and appreciate everybody's work for all that you do for 911 in Colorado. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everyone.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thanks.